Man chops off his finger and is removing skin to look like an alien. And the craziest thing to me is that someone is willingly choosing to chop off their finger, spend the money to chop off their finger, and spend the money to literally have their skin peeled. Like, if this is not a mental disorder, I don't know what is. But let's check this out. Ah, like to me, it's like I don't understand the thought process of being like, you know what? I have five good working fingers that I can use. I just want to chop that off. To me, it's like a waste of money. There's not really a purpose to it. Like, are you're just doing this purely for like physical appearance? But what do you gain? Like, anytime I spend money, I always kind of view it, okay, I spent money on this because I'm going to gain something from it, or I'm going to get some sort of enjoyment, right? But when I see something like this person spent a crazy amount of money probably modifying his body just from what he looks like right there. Like, tattoos are not cheap, right? Surgery is not cheap, right? Piercings with how much he has is not cheap, right? Maintaining all of this is not cheap. The amount of time that you are trading off for all of this is not cheap. But let's continue. So he's starting to look out of this world. Marcelo B. Boy de Souza Ribeiro has a new procedure in mind to enhance his alien devil look. The 40-year-old, who has been dubbed the most modified man in the world, has decided to remove the excess skin and muscle from his hands. The appearance I was looking for in my hands was that of an extraterrestrial, Ribeiro told needtoknow.co.uk. I drew inspiration from movies and documentaries I watched about UFOs. The Sao Paulo, Brazil based tattoo artist claims the entire process took nearly 4 months to complete and cost about $830. Now, what's also interesting, too, this is probably like the only legitimate career or job where you could be making good money and do something like this, right? I've seen some tattoo artists literally make multiple six figures a year just because they have a very, very loyal client base. And it's a lot of times, if you get like a tattoo, someone's going to go back to that same artist because they like that person's work typically, right? And we're talking like a few $100s for a tattoo to potentially multiple thousands of dollars for tattoos over the course of like the lifetime of that customer. So if you have like a customer that comes in like every year to get like a new tattoo, that's like 500 to maybe even like 5,000 a year depending on what you're doing. Like, that's some really good recurring income. So it's like, again, the only, like, pretty much the only job that is legal that you can make a good enough living to do this, like in terms of like actually paying for this to be done, but then also where you don't actually diminish necessarily how much you might make. If anything, you might be able to make a little bit more just because people might take you a little bit more seriously down this path. So, who knows? Maybe this whole body modification process has actually got him better customers. But still, this is a insane path to go down. Let's see, I've made a new modification that doesn't exist in the world yet, said Ribeiro. I had researched body modifications in the world, and from what I saw, no one has yet made a similar one. Ribeiro, who's also covered in nearly 1,500 tattoos, said that he began the process in February by removing excess oil and fat from the sides of his left hand in a bid to make it slimmer. Now, I've had muscle and skin removed with a surgical scalpel to make the hands as normal as possible to look the way I intended to have it, he said. I wanted to finish mine perfectly so that it looks natural as if I was born with that format. The father of three. Dude, what does your wife look like? My lord. The father of three has also undergone several surgeries and has a split tongue, fang teeth, and other skin implants. He told Jam Press that he has spent roughly $36,945 on his transformation over the years. And Rivera also claimed that 98% of his body has been modified. Now, the interesting thing, right, is like this is in Brazil, right? Yeah, I believe it's Brazil. Yeah, Brazil. The cost of living in Brazil is typically not that high. So if he were to do basically the same type of like modifications in like let's say the United States, this is something that's probably multiple six figures to actually do. Now, would you want to do that? Would you want to spend that amount of money? I wouldn't, but it's just kind of crazy when you think about it. But again, I still don't understand like the thought process of just removing like a working digit. Like I just don't understand that. The tattoo artist first gained notoriety earlier this year when he decided to undergo a procedure that would split his fingers in a permanent V formation. I began to see the possibility of making an opening in it through the middle where you can have a permanent split, recalled Ribeiro. After how I made this hand, I found it interesting to do the other one in a different format. The procedure was studied 2 weeks before surgery, and we removed the index finger at the knuckle, he continued. So basically, what this person did was like cut straight down in the middle, like right here, of this part. That is so insane to me. And then just chopped off the finger. Man. Overall, the artist claims that the entire procedure went smoothly and only hurt a little. He said that people love his new look. What people? At first, people were surprised with how the hand looked, said Ribeiro. Today, they always ask me about the hands and to take pictures. I wouldn't really say that that's how that they like love it. They're probably like, "Yo, look at this. This is crazy. This dude has no finger because he purposely got it cut off." It's like so absurd. Let's see. Ribeiro said that he doesn't have any difficulties with handling any activity I do with my hands. I can type, pick up, and play musical instruments. It's all normal. He said, I have no regrets about the procedures. I'm happy and satisfied. The thing is, he says that, right? He says that he's happy and satisfied. But the reality is, you're never happy and satisfied because you keep modifying your body. Like it never stops. This person never stopped modifying the body because they're not happy and satisfied. This is the same thing that I mentioned before about plastic surgery. A lot of times, the ladies who get plastic surgery will continue to keep getting plastic surgery because guess what? Even though you might change your appearance, your mind is still stuck in the body, right? So if you still have like a negative viewpoint on your body, regardless of what you do to change it, you're still going to have a really crappy viewpoint on your body even after you change it, right? So you could be going down a path of like spending tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars on surgery to change your appearance, only to be, at the end of it, Still not happy, so you're still spending money to keep changing your appearance, meaning it's just like this really vicious cycle. It just never stops. You're constantly spending money. Like, the reason why I wanted to cover this, right, is that people need to do their best to try to be content in their life. Because if you don't, you get down this path where you're just spending absurd amounts of money to no end. Like, to literally no end. For basically no purpose as well. Let's see. Can't wait to see what this guy looks like at 80. The problem is, he probably won't make it to 80 just because of the sheer amount of ink that he has. Because if I remember correctly, which I probably don't, but if I remember correctly, some heavily tattooed individuals, especially depending on the country, because, regulations and all that in terms of what's actually inside the ink, they might actually get ink poisoning because of the sheer amount of ink that they have. Like, some of these inks, I believe, have like mercury in it. Some of these have like certain types of metals that are like very, very harmful to people in high concentrations. Mental illness is sad to watch. Yep. Some people are born without a single drop of common sense. The thing is, this isn't even like a common sense thing. It's basically like there is something off inside the brain. Like, something is off within the brain, right? Like, like, it's just not good. I'm sorry, but this is purely demonic, plain and simple. But they mean plain and simple. I don't think this is demonic. I think this is just someone who wants attention and is willing to do pretty much whatever they can to get attention. That's the way I view it. He reproduced, which makes this all the more heartbreaking. The thing is, since this is like a potentially a mental issue, this might actually end up getting passed down to the kids. So his kids might end up having some sort of something missing inside their brain that makes them think like, yeah, this is totally cool. Hmm. Pray for this guy. Yeah, I just don't understand this. But what I also don't understand, right? I don't understand who his wife is that is also thinking, you know what? I'm attracted to this. I'm attracted to someone who purposely harms themselves to chop themselves up for no other purpose but just so that they can look more off putting, basically. Like, I just don't understand that. And the thing is, I personally don't even got anything necessarily wrong with people doing body modifications. It's just, it gets to the point, same thing with plastic surgery. It's like, what is the real reason why you are doing this sort of like body modification, right? Or body modifications, because it constantly continues more and more and more, right? So, like, for example, let's say that a girl were to get plastic surgery. Let's say that she doesn't necessarily like her. Actually, no, I'll put it this way. Let's say that there is a girl who has massive marshmallows, right? To the point where it's actually detrimental to her, like, walking around because of the weight that she is carrying, where it actually messes up her spine and back and is painful, right? So you get plastic surgery to fix that issue, make those big marshmallows into slightly smaller marshmallows, so that they could actually, well, she could actually function a lot better, right? But if you're someone who just wants to go from, like, let's say that you have B cup marshmallows, but you want double D marshmallows, then you want double F marshmallows, then you want double Z marshmallows, there's not really like a point to that, right? Because, like, what is the reasoning for you to get it? Just to get constantly massive and massive and massive marshmallows to the extent that they're like not even functioning anymore? Like, there's like no reason for it. Like, you have one case where they're doing it because they're trying to solve an issue. Another case, you're just going so overboard where like there's something off, like in your brain that is just thinking that's a good idea, right? So that's my biggest issue with this is like when there's not like a rational desired outcome for this, like there's like not a rational reason to do this, it pretty much just never stops, right? It just like basically never, ever, ever stops, right? So, for example, let's say that you want to go on like a diet to lose weight, okay? Well, if your goal is to simply just lose weight until you are reaching like a point where you got like a six pack, or like let's say that you are just doing it to like improve your health, okay, those are rational reasons, right? Specific goal, there's like an end point, sort of, but it makes sense as to why you are doing it. But if you start basically going like, okay, I've reached the point of getting abs, I reached the point where I have gotten healthier for like longevity and all that kind of stuff, but now I'm just not going to eat for multiple days to continue to lose weight to the point where you're now like the Eugenie, I don't know how you pronounce her name, Eugenia Cooley or whatever, this girl that is basically just like constantly like starving herself, like to the point where you get like an ED. Like, it gets to the point where like, okay, in the beginning, kind of made sense that you wanted to do that. Okay, reasonable. But then it gets to this point where it's just like, why? Like, why are you still going down this path? Why are you continuously doing this? It's just bad. Because this guy's going to keep on doing more and more and more body modifications, right? Like, this isn't going to like be the end of it. Even though he said that like he's happy and that, he does, yeah, that he's happy and satisfied. By this time, like next year, he probably would have spent another 10 grand on body modifications, or maybe he'll chop off his foot, or maybe he'll chop off a whole hand this time, or maybe just cut off his ears. Like, it gets into like a really just crazy thing. It's like this individual should have seen a therapist very early on. And what amazes me is that you have people sit down with these individuals that are like this, because he's not the only one, and they like get talked, oh, they have like a conversation with like their potential patient customer, and they're like, oh yeah, I just want to chop off my finger to look like an alien, so how much is that going to cost, right? Like, what's the recovery time for that? Like, at no point is the person going to be like, you know, are you sure you want to do this? You know what? Even if you are sure that you want to do this, I don't feel comfortable chopping off your finger just because you want to look more like an alien, regardless of how much like I make, right? I don't know. Like, reading this red thing just kind of makes me so disappointed about other people. Is like, this is like a mental health thing, like purely simple